The shadow beasts howled and growled. They might not have eyes, but they make up for it with sharpened senses and ruthless predatory efficiency. They are about to go up against perhaps the most powerful and diverse collective of beasts in the world at the moment, the Misty Mountains. The two parties did not waste any second longer. They got right into the messy business of messing each other up. Polar Bear King showed no mercy as he shocked the shadow beasts in his vicinity with his thunderous might. Demon Cow was not doing too badly either. He was swinging his battle axe like there's no tomorrow. Tyrannotitan the Tyrannosaurus Rex disintegrated the nearby shadow beasts with his destructive sonic attacks. And of course, Ninetails, the strongest of them all, decided to go in deeper than everyone else to face more enemies than anyone else. The plethora of shadow beasts all around her were ready to gobble her up into pieces. But that does not bother the strongest beast of Misty Mountains. She just calmly primed a fiery attack of her own. When she had finally unleashed the Inferno Blast, countless shadow beasts melted right where they were standing. It was not a bloodbath. It was more like a cookout. In the middle of the burning masses of shadow beast meat stood Ninetails, unwavering and seemingly untouchable. On the other side of the city, the main event was entering its initial stages. Tree tried to sneak in some fast root attacks, but Ostroth, the Destruction Beast, is a fourth-order transcendent beast that can't go down that easily. They are only starting the fight, yet one of Yuzu's primary modes of attack had already been proven to be useful. He just can't penetrate through Ostroth's thick skin. And that Destruction Beast's defense was not the only thing that he needs to worry about. It also boasts a terrifying offensive side with its tendrils. Yuzu quickly succumbed to the piercing power of these purple tendrils. They were just too fast. After piercing through his hardened body, the tendrils even went forth, not losing their momentum and hitting the Misty Mountain beasts behind. Tree knows that fighting in this place is a very bad idea. If they continue doing so, it will undoubtedly affect his troops. That little moment of hesitation to think about transferring to another battlefield was a grave mistake. Ostroth took the chance to close the gap that moment. The Destruction Beast took a massive bite out of the God Tree's body, seemingly eating his core for dinner. Ostroth started laughing maniacally as the massive body of the God Tree slowly limped down, lifeless. But Yuzu will not go down that easy. But you can't blame Ostroth for being fooled. He was under hallucination after all. God Tree has a few tricks up his sleeves, and this is just one of many. That hallucination has given him an opening to attack with his roots again. For the first time in a while, Yuzu gave this attack his all to the point of grunting. There are very few enemies that could push him to this state. Even though there is a chasm of difference between their quantitative strength, he still managed to push the Destruction Beast back. He might not have caused too much damage, but it was enough for Ostroth to take him a little more seriously now. That brute attack also took the battlefield out of the middle of the city and into a mysterious field of what looks like eggs. God Tree assessed that these overwhelming numbers of chrysalises here should have come from the Destruction Beast himself. These Moth Guy explained that all these eggs, as far as the eye could see, are his offspring, and soon they'll hatch. At that point, all the creatures in this world will become his food. The order of the food chain is not only going to change, but it will also be reprogrammed. The only purpose of this world's existence will be to serve Ostroth and his offspring. The Destruction Beast knew that Yuzu deliberately dragged him out of here because of the fear of harming the Misty Mountain beasts. But in the eyes of Ostroth, this was a meaningless struggle. He believes that his subordinates will absolutely annihilate the God Trees. And it will start with the anomalous red shadow beasts, as they have the strength of second-order transcendent beings. As for the boss himself, Ostroth plans to devour him to become nothing but just a source of strength. Ostroth is already counting his chickens before they hatch. Against a menace like the God Tree, the Destruction Beast could not be more wrong. Misty Mountain beasts are not weak to the point of being defeated by mindless shadow beasts. Even if there's a gap in strength, the beasts hold the edge when it comes to harnessing their strong emotions. Also, there's one more thing that Ostroth did not get right. God Tree did not drag him this far because of some fear of harming the other beasts. As Yuzu's body slowly transforms into a foreign form, he explained that confronting a transcendent fourth-order being requires the use of full firepower. He already knows that he'll kill this pesky Destruction Beast one way or another, but he can't guarantee another thing while he's doing so. With stalwart branches behind his head, a fearsome face that spells death, a menacing crimson aura of devastation, God Tree has finished transforming into his ultimate combat form. That's a freaking Gundam tree on demon time. Since his narrow win against the humans, he has been contemplating the most effective combative stance that he could implement. Sure enough, he has come to this form as the best practical choice. Ostroth was speechless. It looks like he was not the only one capable of changing forms in this city. As fireballs started manifesting around God Tree's nude body, he warned the destruction beast that he can never reach the pinnacle of this world. His descendants will not live in this world. Yuziyu himself will annihilate every one of these bugs. For the first time in this battle, Ostroth looked genuinely upset as it screamed for the God Tree to stop what he's about to do. But it was too late. Multiple explosions of nuclear proportions started littering the ground where the defenseless chrysalises were awaiting their hatching that will never come. Every beast out on the other side of Jia or city felt and saw those massive blasts. The heart of the city was plunged into hellfire, but it's better to have a few more destroyed skyscrapers instead of 1,000 destruction beasts roaming the world. Ostroth himself was not too harmed by the explosion. He definitely hates the fact that his offspring were literally cooked, though. God Tree turned to the destruction beast in surprise of this extremely emotional response. He thought that this guy was the emotionless type. He never expected that Ostroth would mourn his dead children. This beast that mercilessly killed countless people and destroyed everything in its path can feel anger too. Right now, he just wanted to kill the God Tree no matter what. Yuziyu was ready for the worst that is yet to come. An explosion of speed collided in the middle of Jia or city. The fearless Mia duo kept themselves hidden while trying to get the best shot of the fight. It's finally time for combat. Unfortunately for them, a single wandering shadow beast just happened to spot their hiding place. It looks like this will be the end of the Jia or city war broadcast, unless it's not. The shadow beast has been repelled by some unknown force. It was none other than Captain Xiao Zi and her trusty giant Panda mount coming to the people's rescue. Meanwhile, the evacuation efforts are being stifled by other shadow beasts, and the only line of defense that the humans have are Bald Head and his crew. Bald Head has never been one to back down from a fight before. Not that he has gotten stronger from training with a God Tree. The same thing goes. Shadow beasts versus beasts made of flesh and blood that have undergone countless evolutions. Who will win? Bald Head and the crew might come out on top when it comes to individual strengths, but there were just too many shadow beasts to keep track of, and their target is locked onto the humans. No matter how hard they try to escape this horror, some will succumb to the relentless beastly chase. Just as the humans were about to get picked off one by one, not leaving a single survivor behind, something came into view from the rubbles of the city. There is a giant monster ahead. Its face has been obscured by darkness. This is the Monkey King. The survivors have stopped running for their lives. They were slowly accepting that today will be the day that they die, but they don't want to die. Monkey King lifted his muscular arms casually and aimed at the approaching shadow beasts. He then started pounding the ground, making mincemeat out of the disgusting innards of the shadow beasts. The next thing you know, this single powerful monster has driven out and destroyed the approaching horde of shadows. Each of these loathsome beasts that came from Ostroth's vomit were dismantled. Each kill was more gruesome than the last. After the preliminary assault of the Monkey King, the gaggle of monkey beasts started pouring into the city like it was their personal playground, and the shadow beasts are their toys. Apes and monkeys versus otherworldly shadow beasts. Just from the vitality and intensity of the primates alone, the results were already obvious. The humans that were saved from the maws of certain death were still shaking in fear. They think that these new beasts just see them as food, worth fighting over for. But when the Monkey King at the front started speaking human tongue and asking if anyone among them worked at the zoo, the survivors felt confused. Imagine being a human in the middle of a war-torn city crawling with mindless beasts, then suddenly, a massive monkey started speaking clearly. On the other side of Jia or city, the conditions were not looking too good environment-wise. But thanks to the praying mantis' efforts, the humans in this area have been located and are ready for a seamless evacuation. They might look like savage beasts, but they will ride or die when it comes to the God Tree's orders. When their boss tells them that ensuring human safety takes priority, including the rescue of zoo staff, they will follow suit. The wingnet units have also been deployed to take care of the unconscious survivors, taking them to safety. Qinggang has been monitoring the entirety of Jia or city, sensing every movement of the earth in his pedestal. He serves as the connective hub of the evacuation efforts. Thorn contacted him that all surviving humans in the city have been finally located. The next step is to get them out of the city immediately. They just need to do this right, and the rest will depend on the God Tree and the 9 great beasts in the front lines. Qinggang's squad and Ant Queen's team are on the north side. Praying Mantis Queen's team and Wild Boar King's group are flanking Ninetails and her combat team. Monkey King's team is coordinating the rescue at the south near where the God Tree and the Destruction Beast are having their showdown. Speaking of Ninetales and the combat team, it sounds like she was not having a great time fighting against the anomalous red shadow beast. It has the ability to alter its physical form, augmenting physical attacks in various ways. The red shadow beast thinks that fighting Ninetales is boring and tedious. It thinks that the most powerful beast of the Misty Mountains was just way too weak, no matter how you spin it. Glacier the giant mammoth was also struggling. He might hold the size advantage, but being swarmed by countless shadow beasts is not a good position to be in at all. Little White Snake was starting to have trouble too. There are just way too many shadow beasts, and they are desperately clingy and not in a good way. The other members of the combat team were not doing too bad as they take down shadows after shadows at a decent pace. But the thing is, when it comes to a war of this scale, casualties on either side are essentially inevitable. The first death on the Misty Mountain side would be a spider and a hedgehog duo, when a humongous shadow beast dove down with a chomp. But the two miraculously survived thanks to White Tiger and his swift wings. It looks like even up in the air, you won't be entirely safe from the assault of these vomit beasts. White Tiger was caught off guard and was sent flying to collide with a broken down building. But the shadow beast that snuck in a hit suffered a much more painful fate. Cuts from head, its long neck, and throughout its entire body. The culprit was none other than the new and improved Sparky and his lethal blades. These vomit beasts might be big, but sometimes it's not about the size. Sparky observed that their enemies are wholly different from humans. These are killing machines utterly devoid of emotions. They have no fear whatsoever. All of them are charging forward without caring about their lives. There are avian shadow beasts too, and the battle up in the air was just as fierce as down below. The Misty Mountain avian beast force was not well equipped enough to stop the charge of endless waves of flying shadow beasts. Demon Cow has graduated to ripping out these vomit beasts from limb to limb with his bare hands. But even this resilient beast was starting to feel the fatigue from the endless waves of enemies. There is still no certainty with regards to how much longer they have to fight like this. That was until a representative of the Peregrine Falcon faction started flying through Jiyaer City to disseminate the news. Given his superior speed, this Peregrine Falcon was the most efficient message carrier to tell everyone that there are no humans left in the area anymore. With this piece of information, they can finally stop holding back and start giving it their all in the fight. There's no more stalling and no more using just defense. Finally, the beasts of the Misty Mountains can finally act as beasts with no need to hold back their animalistic tendencies. They have endured for far too long, and they deserve a bloodbath. Tyrannotitan unleashed his Echo Wave with maximum firepower, effectively ripping through the flesh of countless shadow beasts. Demon Cow has also activated his gravitational force, essentially rendering all nearby enemies useless. On top of that, his gravitational control extended to the ruined skyscrapers, raining them down as meteoric weapons heading for the ground, leaving shadow beast stains on the concrete. Little White Snake has no slouch either. After feasting on spirit stones for quite a while, this beast was now capable of glacial flow, icebound domain to encase every enemy in sight in spikes of frost. On the contrary, Tyrannotitan roasted every enemy on the way with his Inferno Ray Beam. The fire traveled so far and so fast that it spread through the winding streets of Jiyaer City, erasing every enemy along the way. Meanwhile, Ninetales and the anomalous red shadow beast are still locked in a staring contest. Her mind was not in this fight at all. Ninetales couldn't care less. She just kept on thinking about how crazy their ninth brother, Little Panda, was for undertaking this perilous task alone. She took it as he did not trust them to be of help. So, after all this is over, something needs to be done. The red shadow beast did not even stand a sliver of a chance once Ninetales got the permission to stop holding back. She is definitely going to teach that Little Panda a lesson once they finish up here. For now, she intends to take all this frustration out and teach this unsuspecting victim the lesson that she so desperately wanted to impart. Flame Body created a blazing sphere of death that essentially deleted all forms of life within its radius. That is a let her cook moment. The environmental disruption that the Flame Body technique unleashed upon the world disrupted the human efforts to get closer to the battlefield. Military and media teams were trying to cover what in the world was happening, but now they fear getting shot down. Thinking that the beasts were busy fighting each other, they pushed forth. They wanted to do that, but the fear and confusion for what's happening in this historic battle was evident on their faces. Glacier, the battle mammoth, finally has the green light to mow down tons of enemies with rapid collision. The Polar King Bear and his elite squad of Arctic bears were also cleaning up their area with vicious thunderclap roars. Of course, Sparky was not one to get overshadowed by his oversized comrades. He sliced and diced through a mountain of shadow beasts with strength amplification. His triple strike was particularly terrifying. It beheaded and dismembered not only enemies but also freaking skyscrapers that just happened to be on the way. The air beast strike force was also doing their part, simply cooking the shadow beast from the safety of the skies. Peregrine falcons have a different way of killing. They just simply use their beaks and unstoppable force to cleave through shadow beasts. The king of the jungle was also showing the world that he's not just a dumb white tiger. I dare you to tell that to his face while he's standing on a literal mountain of corpses. People from all over the globe witnessed just how powerful these beasts from the Misty Mountains really are. Jia city is on the brink of annihilation now. If they looked overwhelming on the screen, then they are 1,000 times more imposing even if you're hundreds of feet in the air. Another odd thing was that some shadow beasts have seemingly transformed to a different hue and are now fighting amongst themselves. The mastermind behind this development was none other than the new addition to the team, Celestial Earth's enigmatic flower herself. And she is pissed off the highest level. She will not forgive the destruction beast for injuring and kidnapping her beloved little panda. Out in the broadcast station, they just received the news that the Jiat media team was back online after being rescued by the surviving members of the Iron Knight Pandas. It's hard to even put into words just how brutal the war raging on the city really was. What's even weirder was that the city residents are being gathered and escorted out of the city into safety by the monsters of Misty Mountains. Not only that, but there are also numerous monsters ahead blocking the shadow beasts from hunting down the survivors. It might be hard to digest by the humans were being protected by the beasts that they feared. The Federation leader was also notified of this bizarre development. No one expected for things to go this way. This was a bad look for the Federation, and they are now in uncharted territory when it comes to human-beast conflict. Still, this does not change the fact that the Demon Tree is only a transcendent third-order being, and that the Destruction Beast is of the fourth order. The difference in strength is too vast. Even though safeguarding more lives is crucial, it is meaningless in the grand scheme of things if they don't defeat Ostroth. Humanity's only hope is to rely on their sworn enemy, the Demon Tree. But if the strongest monster on their side fails, their next moves would determine everything. The Federation head had to make the call. He needs the spiritual missiles ready to launch at any moment. He has been ready for a while now. They have one missile more powerful than the ones they used against the Demon Tree in the previous war. They gathered the spiritual power of the entire nation's transcendent beings in a single load. The leader decided that the moment the Demon Tree goes down, they will fire the spiritual missile directly at the Destruction Beast. It was just ironic that what they once wanted to destroy could now possibly become their sole savior. Humanity can only place all their hopes on the new combat form of the so-called Demon Tree. Speaking of his new combat form, Yuziu's Zephyr Willow Strike has turned into an even more lethal weapon. In point-blank range, Ostroth knows that he could not possibly take all that sharpness unharmed, forcing him to a winged shield. But right after guarding against all the wind blades, this muff beast started unleashing some fire-scale powder. God Tree looked at the surroundings and saw the odd lights starting to surround him. Without any warning, these lights immediately detonated all over Yuziu. Ostroth boasted that he already knows the God Tree's obvious weakness and all that. He was so proud of busting out his surprise fire-based skill. But all that yapping just earned him a jab of a strong root straight through the body. God Tree would like to protest about that obvious weakness this bug was talking about. If he really was weak to fire attacks, then why didn't he feel anything under that intense explosion? Ostroth clicked his tongue. He had a bad read against the big boss. God Tree might be made of wood, but it's not your typical flame maple wood. To add even more insult to his face, particles of fiery light also surrounded Ostroth. The scene was way too similar to what he did just earlier. God Tree just laughed at the bug's stupidity. If it's fire-based skills they are talking about, then he could bust out one of his own too. A tree might be made of wood, but bugs should be vulnerable against fire too. This is getting increasingly worse for Ostroth. Just as the explosion was on the verge of reaching its crescendo, the Destruction Beast pulled out another ace. He had to use pure spiritual power just to dispel the quickly coalescing burst of blazing force. Now, this bug beast really was pissed off. All he could think about was killing and tearing this tree limb from limb, bark from bark. And to do that, Ostroth pushed his speeds to the limit, seemingly vanishing out of thin air. Unlike God Tree, the Destruction Beast might possess some fire-based skills, yet he's still vulnerable to its fiery onslaught. This ridiculous weakness loophole that the Ostroth has is an exploitable one. It's not looking good for the bug. With the enemy's secret weakness out in the open, all Yuziu had to do was catch him with a possible scorching kill shot. Under the threat of being burned alive, Ostroth forgot to account for the god tree's plethora of attacking moves, and now he has another hole in his body with a root stab. For the first time in short life, the destruction beast has coughed up blood and felt the pain of being outplayed. God Tree was not aiming for the enemy's vitals though, it wouldn't be that easy. Instead, he was hunting for a blue orb inside. Inside this blue orb was the slumbering, injured little panda. God Tree's primary goal was the retrieval of the ninth brother after all. Realizing that he just got punked again, Ostroth immediately released scale powder into the air once more, only to get interrupted by multiple root strikes. Yuziu clicked his tongue. This bug just won't learn its lesson and was just throwing powerful moves one after the other. Now that the scale powder has failed to mix with the atmosphere, the destruction beast had to pull out in fear of getting caught by the God Tree's follow-up attack. Ostroth succeeded in doing so without much struggle. He still has the speed of a fourth-order transcendent beast after all. Nevertheless, it's a big win for Yuziu. He just successfully rescued one of his subordinates. Looking at the blue orb, it seems like little Panda is just in a dormant state. They have a lot to say to each other, but they can just talk about it after everything's over. God Tree then threw the blue orb out into the other direction like he was Shohei Ohtani. This throw was an absolute beamer, traveling through the ruins of Jia or City with unbelievable speeds. If you are observant enough like Ninetales, you would see a mini blue meteor traveling right above. She immediately turned to Demon Cow. They did not even have to exchange words. He knows what must be done. Demon Cow swiftly extended his anti-gravity field up into the air to catch and stop the blue orb's momentum. Only now did they see what was inside of this weird object that the God Tree threw their way. It was their ninth brother. Ninetales ordered the attack force to get their ninth brother out of here, out of harm, while she holds down the fort by herself. The little white snake was the best fit for the job with her lithe and fast movements across the ruins of the prosperous human city. Even with her agility, it wasn't enough to go to safety without any stoppages. The number of shadow beasts lurking everywhere was still an issue. Seeing little white snake and the slumbering little panda get jammed up by countless shadow beasts alarmed Ninetales. She immediately left her ongoing fight, exploding into thunderous speeds. Ninetales was not just built for raw power, she was built for speed. But while she was on the way, the problem at the other side of the field was already resolving itself one tiny punch at a time. Little Panda has woken up from his slumber. He just broke free from the blue orb, and he's already breaking jaws. One punch from the little fellow deleted a shadow beast's head into an empty mist. He was still heavily injured from fighting solo against the destruction beast, but that did not stop him from showing these grunts who's boss. Now that his consciousness was back, he started grappling with the fact that he thought he died. But the sight of his brothers and sisters from the misty mountains appearing before him added to the confusion. The little panda felt powerless, but his pride just wouldn't let him ask these guys for help for his personal matters. Ninetales had to explain that after he was swallowed whole by the destruction beast, their master came in running for the save. He did not even think about the possibility that the God Tree was also here for his sake. Ninetales continued that it's not just the master and the core team. Everyone was here and right now, and they are desperately putting their lives on the line on the battlefield known as Jia or City. They are protecting what their ninth brother holds dear. They are protecting what the little panda wanted to protect. Ninetales shot her basically little brother with a frustrated glare. She was glad that he's alive, but it shouldn't have gotten to this point in the first place. She could not endure it any longer. She had to smack this little brother of hers just a little for being so stubborn. Demon Cow and Little White Snake watched in horror as Little Panda already has life-threatening injuries in his body. Little Panda looked up to his big sister, not knowing the words to say. She just wanted to know why in the world this little troublemaker did not call them for help. Panda tried to state his reasoning, but he could not really come up with any reasonable ones. Ninetales continued to scold him about going rogue and doing something so dangerous all alone. She asked him if they are not worthy enough for him to rely on. Little Panda could not let out a word at all. His emotions were running high like it has never been before. Ninetales asked another even more hard-hitting question. Is it possible that deep within their little brother's heart, he doesn't fully trust his family at the Misty Mountains? But that really was not the case for Little Panda. He just does not want everyone to die for his sake. He wants everyone to live, so he wanted to take on the burden by himself. Ninetales understands where he's coming from, but she felt offended. She asserted that they will not die. Based on the determined body language of the other beasts, they wanted to echo out the sentiment of their eldest sister. Even the beasts that were not in the upper echelon had the aura of monsters that would not go down so easily. When they pool their terrifying strengths together, They are a fearsome force that one can lean on. A force that their ninth brother could ask for help when it comes to anything. At this moment, little Panda could not help but let go of the emotional baggage that he was carrying for far too long. Tears and snot cascaded down his face. The words of his new family and the support they were ready to give him were overwhelming. The next thing you know, he was tossed up in the air for little white snake to catch. Ninetails wanted him to go for now. The person he's been looking for has been waiting for him all along. Myth Brother will never forget the kindness that the God Tree, Ninetails, and everyone has given him. On the other side of the war zone, Shingon was altering the topography with his copper wall technique. This was in service of blocking the hordes of shadow beasts trying to get to the remaining survivors so desperately. The enemies managed to locate where they were transporting the evacuees and are now being barred in a narrow part of the city. Any beasts that managed to find another way were blocked and promptly eliminated by the Misty Mountain monsters tasked with defending the people. Thorn was coordinating the retreat while keeping an eye on the copper wall for any threats that might slip through the cracks. They have to protect the evacuating citizens and deal with the shadow beasts as soon as possible, but the numbers of the enemies kept on increasing. Not only that, but they also have monsters that have the leaping power to render the Great Wall useless. After jumping through that barrier, they were free to take their pick on the crowd of people on the other side. Now that the shadow beasts have appeared from the skies, there will be a lot of casualties. Fortunately for these helpless survivors, another force has entered the fray with their high-caliber bullets. Shingon and the Misty Mountain Rescue Force swiftly turned their heads to the source of that firepower. It was none other than the human military force. They had infantry and attack helicopters finally breach the walled-up city. They were under the orders to protect the Misty Mountain beasts while assisting the citizens in evacuating. Wait, they're doing the smart thing. These are fake humans. This came as quite a surprise. The human military of all forces were actually teaming up with them openly. The Federation leader knows that this was their only choice to keep casualties at a minimum and maintain the possibility of coming out on top. The shadow beasts have finally breached through the copper wall, but they are under suppressive fire from the military forces. These poor soldiers were essentially deployed to their deaths. Their enhanced bullets could barely keep up with the swarm of enemies. They came to the brink of being wiped out by the stronger shadow beasts. But this is where the beauty of collaborating with the Misty Mountain beasts comes through with some clutch kills. Even with reinforcements, they are still down in numbers. Some shadow beasts managed to sneak into where the survivors are. This rescue effort was just clutch kills once after the other. But this time, it came from one of the survivors, from Xiao Ai's marksmanship to be exact. She might just be another zookeeper, but her courage in this whole ordeal cannot be understated. It's just that her bravery always puts her in incredibly dangerous positions. This time, it puts her on the brink of being eaten by one of the rogue shadow beasts hungry for human flesh. Thankfully, a fuzzy pair of legs has come rushing in like there's no tomorrow. Instead of Xiao Ai getting bit in half, it was little Panda chomping down on some shadow beast flesh instead. With his limited bite force, the little guy bit as hard as he could to save a person that was very near and dear to his heart. Seeing the little panda that Xiao Ai took care of when he was just a helpless cub once again, it was as if the threat of the shadow beast didn't even matter. This was Chi Zi. This was that cowardly little guy that is transformed into a dependable savior. Coming in hot with the momentum of his run was enough to knock the shadow beast away from the public. Now, the survivors had a clear runway to safety outside of the cursed Jiat city. Little White Snake and Qinggang had also joined the fray to deter all attempts to pick off the evacuees. Their reinforcement was truly a godsend for the struggle on this side of the battle. The military has also solidified their foothold to unleash the might of their bullets, not letting one more civilian fall prey to the shadow beasts. Still, the vomit beast reinforcements were not stopping. It was as if they were not even making a dent in their number. This is when the military force decided to bring out the big guns, the RPG explosives, their ultimate deterrent. These loads of pure explosion were quite effective in neutralizing their targets in bulk. The second wave of RPG explosives was unleashed in hopes of wiping out the enemies. But the shadow beasts did something unusual. They were quite fast when it comes to adaptation. The girthy RPG load actually got swallowed from head to its base.
What do you mean by that?
Then the shadow beast that throat, that rocket opened its mouth again and sent the freaking explosive back with a vengeance. Its target was not the Misty Mountain beasts or the military forces. It was the civilians running for their lives. Shingang saw this and tried to help, but he was just too far and he can't possibly block it in time. Thorn was also not in the position to intervene. They could only watch helplessly as the rocket heads for the clump of helpless survivors. Among those that are about to get turned into dust was Xiao Ai. It was at this moment that a being with heavenly white feathers descended from the heavens above. Its talons gripped the rocket, not minding the propulsion that it has. It's none other than the forgettable white crane of the Misty Mountains. The military was shocked. Thorn and the other Misty Mountain beasts were even more surprised. White Crane threw the explosive back to the Shadow Beasts. It was basically a game of hot potato, the RPG loads. Cool guys or cool birds do not look at explosions. Another crucial save from the unsung hero of Misty Mountains. Shingang and Thorn cheered for the White Crane. That bird is usually inconspicuous, but he's always been useful in critical moments. Hearing these backhanded compliments did not sit well for the other beasts listening. Even more so in White Crane's ears. He could not help but shed a single tear for his unrecognized heroism. Now that the civilians have evacuated at a safe enough distance, the military could finally up the gear and maximize their firepower output. But the problems just kept on going even now. The Shadow Beasts have figured out a way up into the rooftops of the ruined buildings and are now leaping down to attack. This type of suicide attacks took out a lot of military infantries on the floor. But that won't be too much of an issue for too long for the White Emperor's sword it's about to descend on the battlefield. Wang Hao, the loser White Emperor, has entered the fray to deliver these Shadow Beasts to their deaths. He is also quite popular when it comes to the infantry or to the whole Federation for that matter. With the White Emperor was the next set of reinforcements that just told the ordinary military forces to rest well now. The transcendent human forces will take it from here. Even they had never thought that they'd see the day when they team up with monsters on a mission. But the transcendent soldier with the big guns thinks that this team-up was a joke. He thinks that humans got this. He has the utmost confidence when it comes to his big guns and his spiritual cannon technique. It is quite destructive, deleting dozens if not hundreds of shadow beasts in one go. The other transcendent soldier with him was also doing quite well. He was all smiles while cutting up shadow beasts from left and right. The White Emperor was the flashiest though. Anywhere his blade goes, shadow beasts were sliced and diced neatly. With the addition of 3 transcendent soldiers, the efforts to push back the enemies got a whole lot easier from this point on. The military infantry idolized these city lords that are the pinnacle of human capabilities in their eyes. They are in a completely different league from normal humans. Those sentiments can easily go to someone's head and inflate their ego, especially for jackasses like this one with the big guns. He unleashed the spiritual cannon in all directions with no mercy and no regard for friend or enemy either. Bald-headed felt that something was not quite right, and when he turned his head, a scorching heat and bright light slowly closing and surprised him. That guy with the big guns was actually lighting up the whole battlefield even if it was under the control of the Misty Mountain beasts. He laughed maniacally, making it obvious that he doesn't differentiate targets. When he sees a beast, shadow, or otherwise, he will fire and send them to hell. Ding, 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 we have a winner for the Dumb-Ass Human Award. A lot of shadow beasts were sent to the Shadow Realm, but a lot of Misty Mountain beasts also joined them. Big Guns kept on laughing maniacally. In his tiny piece of brain, he was just slaughtering the enemies of humanity. Shingang was not about to let that slide, though. He immediately raised the Earth's grand terrain. Structures of hardened and spiked Earth formations started to gather around Big Guns, threatening to take his life right then and there. Shingang was smart enough to just warn Big Guns that if another shell lands on one of his comrades, then Big Guns could say bye to his pitiful life. Big Guns knew that Shingang was not joking around, and he promised to tone it down. Baldhead thinks that the man was not being sincere, so a casual shock of thousands of volts could perhaps clear the air properly. Shigeyaru City is in a sorry state. It just experienced and is still experiencing an unprecedented war after all. Yuzi was still locked in on his single combat against the big bad destruction beast. His 9-wood arboreal roots are proving to be an effective weapon. Each root was stabbing and wounding the seemingly indestructible enemy, but he's whittling down its health bit by bit. At the moment, Godtree has the obvious upper hand. He's been slapping this bug left, right, and center to a sorry state. But the might and durability of an anomalous beast at this level could not be underestimated. Even with injuries, it still has the capacity to retaliate. Using purple tendrils, Ostroth effectively limited the Godtree's movement for a while. This was a very effective constriction to stop the one-sided onslaught. The Destruction Beast was also clever enough to wrap those dirty tendrils around his roots, effectively stopping the stab attacks. Not only that, Ostroth was planning to haul him up into space where you will be helpless as he doesn't have the ability to engage in aerial battles. In space, the Destruction Beast will have the upper hand and defeat will be certain. Godtree might not have wings to fight up in the air, but the enemy was still foolish to think that he has no counters for this type of situation. He could just throw all of his weakness out of the window by simply using the new ability that he was playing with in the northern regions, Gigantification. Seeing Godtree's body start to transform and change size came as a shock to Ostroth. After getting freed from the binding of the purple tendrils, Godtree resembled an old forest god that was about to crush a pesky bug. His punch from the hardened and gigantic fist made of wood landed squarely on the destruction beast's entire body. Yuzi was really going all out now. He's tired of this unkillable bug buzzing all over him. His amplified size has now towered even the highest skyscrapers of Jia City. The destruction he could unleash has also gone up. In this battle of the pinnacle of monsters, human structures were taking the biggest damage. Watching this, Ninetales could not help but grit her teeth. She wanted to help her master in this decisive fight. Meanwhile, the media team in the helicopter was suffering from the impacts of the battle. They made sure to keep a healthy distance from the epicenter, but the shockwaves can still reach them. Just that one strike created a huge crater in the middle of the city. The scale of this battle has never been seen before. Transcendent third order and fourth order beings are simply beyond human comprehension, no matter how you spin it. Godtree watched the impact of his attack, looking for signs of the destruction beast among the dust and rubble. It was extremely effective. He almost finished off Ostroth with that one punch. He took out one of the bug's wings and caused irreparable damage to the body. But as expected, it's not easy to kill a transcendent fourth-order beast in one hit even if you pour everything into it. It's better to say that it's already impressive that he pushed such a beast to such a condition. Instead of being flustered, the destruction beast seemed oddly calm. This bug just called to him. Using one of its own purple tendrils, Ostroth decided to discard the damaged legs altogether. He took out one of his limbs without as much as a wince just like that. Yuzi felt unnerved by this development. This was not how the fight was supposed to go. In place of that detached limb, a sprout of something entirely different started emerging. Godtree praised the bug for having the guts to abandon even his own limbs after assessing that they will be useless. Ostroth believes that damaged limbs will only be a burden in a battle of this caliber. He thinks that it doesn't matter anyway. Once he eats the Godtree himself, Ostroth will evolve into a new form, and he intends to keep on evolving and keep on living on. And then he will eventually manifest the most perfect form that this world has ever seen. For the Destruction Beast, continuous evolution is the meaning of his entire existence. At that moment, Yuzi's system warned him that the enemy's spiritual power has started to rise rapidly. It jumped from 7.6 million to 8.9 million in just a few seconds. Ostroth added that with the Godtree's limited power, he cannot handle the power of a transcendent fourth order. The Destruction Beast is done playing along. He will put everything into his next attack to obliterate Godtree and the whole city. The overpowered bug has a point. Compared to his paltry 3.3 million points of remaining spiritual power, Ostroth was just way too powerful. And all that power was channeled into a beam of light that threatened to eviscerate anyone unfortunate enough to get targeted. Yuzi braced himself and activated crystallization on his arms in an effort to possibly stave off the incoming beam. Thankfully, the texture of his crystallization was enough to redirect the powerful attack up into the skies. That did not stop it from going forth in a seemingly endless stream of pure spiritual power, though. The beam eventually concluded in a gigantic explosion far from the city, an explosion in the scale that has never been recorded in human history. Try as they might, the media team struggled to keep the helicopter steady from the winds of decimation coming off the explosion. That attack just now has caused a 7.0 magnitude earthquake in Jia City and all the nearby areas. If that attack had detonated in the middle of the battlefield, it would be akin to an extinction event. The higher-ups know that if it weren't for the Godtree confronting Ostroth, then they would not have stood a chance. It's likely that the entire city would have been razed to the ground and the whole Federation would have come next. The earthquake in Jia City caused the countless ruined infrastructures with damaged foundations to topple. Thankfully, Qinggang was alert enough to build an earthen haven to protect everyone inside. They know that the fight of the Titans caused this. Yuzi didn't expect that this overpowered bug would hide his strength for a critical moment like this. He probably used the same trick to catch the Leviathan Monarch off guard before. In order to redirect that attack away from this city, Godtree paid the price of losing almost half of his entire body. Ostroth is the first opponent to reduce him to such a state. Seeing Godtree in this condition, the Federation leader handed down the order to prepare the spiritual missile. Once the Godtree is defeated, or even just shows signs of being beaten, they can't afford to hesitate any longer. Humanity must be decisive and ruthless. They must launch their final card at the opportune moment.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
The overpowered bug praised Yuziyu for withstanding a blow that even the Leviathan monarch failed to withstand. From 8.9 million spiritual power, Ostroth climbed up even higher to 9.2 million. It is ridiculous that such a powerful move can actually be used twice in a row. And this time, Godtree doubts that he could effectively guard again. This time, the scale and power emanating from the new attack looked and felt a lot bigger. The pure spiritual power needed to even manifest this thing was ridiculous. To prepare for what's about to come, Yuziyu, with half of his body torn up, beckoned the earth element to build him the best earth shield that he could muster. The destruction beast was living up to his title with the onslaught of his extinction-level beams. Now he's really in a pinch. Godtree must find a way to tank the hit with just his most powerful defensive move available. The weight bearing down upon his barrier was enough to break even the strongest transcendent being, but Yuziyu persevered. He cleverly angled the earthen formation to the perfect angle to eventually redirect the destructive beam once again. This time, it went up into the air. Ostroth did not mind that at all. This overpowered bug has a ton of techniques in his seemingly unlimited bag of tricks. Right now, it's ghouls coming out from inside his body. Every single one of these ghouls was the same as the anomalous red shadow beast that he summoned to give Nine Tails a tough time. Now, all of them are swarming the injured and spent Godtree as fast as they can. Overwhelming him with numbers when he was this exhausted was the right call, but the Godtree is not alone in this fight. Coming from behind was the Flame Princess herself, Xiaoqing. She just arrived on time to act as reinforcement for her master. The Flame Princess did not even waste a single second and pulled out her blazing flame sword, overflowing with burning spiritual energy. One slash has dashed away the lives of countless red shadow beasts, effectively foiling Ostroth's plan to overwhelm the Godtree with numbers. This slash was not just your ordinary slash too. It was explosive to the point of plunging the heart of the city with hellfire in all directions. An attack of that level was just a one and done. Xiaoqing has evaporated her blade in one go, but easily neutralized the immediate threat. Even the Great Flame Sword developed by the Spiritual Power Research Institute can only withstand one full power strike of hers. She's going to need a better weapon. The broadcast of the fight stayed up even with all the destruction. The human media team is the real MVP. Because of them, everyone saw just how powerful the Flame Princess really was. She came to back up her master, but she also came bearing news that the higher-ups are planning to launch a spiritual missile here any second now. Godtree figured as much, but the launch of a missile in this position would only mean one thing. At that moment, Yuziyu just thought of a plan so ridiculous that it might just work if done properly. He asked Xiaoqing if there's any way for him to contact and speak directly to the higher-ups, to the man in charge of the entire Federation operation. A few moments later, the word quickly traveled to the office of the Federation head. He could not believe the words coming out of his associate's mouth. The Godtree wanted to talk. Xiaoqing gave Yuziyu the device to contact the leader of the Federation as he has something to say, and that foolish leader must hear him out loud and clear. The head still could not believe that he's talking with the supreme enemy of humanity just a few months ago, but it really was the Demon Tree's voice. Yuziyu cut straight to the chase. If he's being honest, dealing with a transcendent being nearing the Fifth Order is more than just extremely challenging, and they are going to need to work together here. Xiaoqing's flames were still raging on, effectively hiding what they were doing from the sharp sight of the overpowered bug. But she knows that this fire alone won't be enough to buy enough time for the Godtree to do his thing. So, she decided to tag in for the 1 versus 1. Activating Inferno Butterfly commanded the raging flames from all around the area to coalesce into a tsunami that burns down anything it comes across. She is strong, but her flames were not strong enough to deal significant damage to someone as powerful as the Destruction Beast. After swiping the flames away, Ostroth retorted that after dealing with a bizarre tree, maybe it is time to deal with humans now. Xiaoqing gave that attack her all and it did not even leave a scratch, a burn mark, or anything like that. In the middle of the burning heart of Jia City is a mystery whether Xiaoqing survived the attempt to buy time against the Destruction Beast. On the Federation headquarters, the leader patiently listened to the Godtree's demands, but he couldn't wrap his head around such a ridiculous request. Yuziyu retorted that this is what the Federation head have always wanted anyway. They were just hastening the process a little bit. The odd request would still be a win for humanity, but the head warned the Godtree that he better not regret making the call. Yuziyu replied that it won't be a problem. In his entire life, he will never do anything that he will ever regret. Back in the action, it looks like Xiaoqing was still in one piece, though a little bit worse for wears after trying to distract Ostroth for just a few more seconds. She had to admit that the level of this enemy is too high. It was just too powerful that even think about defeating the overpowered bug is absurd. But she must give her all to buy even just another second for her master. In order to do that, she must stay at the top of her game. She finally busted out her butterfly wings made of pure scorching heat. Seeing this form that was quite reminiscent to an insect like him, Ostroth laughed in amusement, praising Shi Yaoqing for being quite remarkable for a mere human. She was not messing around though. Shi Yaoqing might just be buying time, but she was going to go all out in order to do that. The Flame Princess dove down with the might of her blazing spiritual power in full display. She lit up the entire city in the colors of fire. Flying up into the air, you can see that when she wills it, the Flame Princess could wipe out cities all by herself. But she was only trying to do so because anything less would be ineffective against a monster at the level of the Destruction Beast. She was exhausted with little to no spiritual power in the tank. To make matters worse, the purple tendrils came out of the smoke to snatch her out from the skies. If there is something that the Destruction Beast hates with a passion, it's humans buzzing around like flies. It doesn't take a fight expert to evaluate if this is bad. Her position was abysmal with nowhere to go. She was almost certainly done for if not for a powerful force launching out from a distance and heading for Jiya's city at breakneck speeds. Of course, it was the culmination of human transcendence studies, their new and improved spiritual missile. Ostroth has no knowledge of what that thing coming for him was. He has no concept of just how hard humans tried to perfect their craft after their defeat from the God Tree's hands. Just to secure the plan even further, strong roots started bearing down on the Destruction Beast's whole body. God Tree has perfectly timed his action to slowly choke out every joint in the bug's body in order to prevent any movements. No matter how much Ostroth struggled, God Tree's binding was just too tight and secure to shake off in just a few seconds. While he was trapping the Destruction Beast, Yuziyu has also stolen Shi Yaoqing away from the enemy's tendrils. She needs to hurry up and get out of this place now. Unable to move and overconfident in his defensive capabilities, Ostroth boasted that something like a human-made toy cannot destroy him and the only one who'll die here is the God Tree. That's where he was entirely wrong. No one said that the missile was coming down to destroy him. Yuziyu just wrapped him up so he could stay put and watch closely. The God Tree's roots reached for the heavens above while the light of the incoming ballistic missile filled the entire area. In the heart of Jiya's city, the God Tree accepted the pure spiritual power extracted from the transcendent people of humanity in the form of a missile. Even the overpowered bug could not understand what's happening. He thought he was the target of the attack after all. But no, this plan was the culmination of conflict. What was made for him will belong solely to him. This is God Tree's brief union with humans. The God Tree roared with a mixture of pain and the feeling of newfound strength coursing throughout his body. You see, instead of nuking down the whole area, the spiritual missile did not cause any destruction this time around. There have been too many explosions, and this one is different. This one was not on the list of the possibilities in the Destruction Beast's head. Instead of a destructive boom, it was more like a controlled but sudden burst of spiritual power coalescing into a single point in the heart of Jiya's city. After all the lights faded and all that's left was the dust of what just happened, Yuziyu stood firm, still in one piece. All Ostroth knows was that the missile was not your run-of-the-mill weapon. It brought the God Tree's power on a different level compared to before. Feeling the renewed power in his branches, roots, and entire body, Yuziyu could not help but admit that humans are indeed the most troublesome creatures. His body is healed up. It was like he was restored back to his prime self in combat form. No, he has become better and stronger by a mile. The Destruction Beast undoubtedly sensed that change. He was the closest one near the God Tree after all. But Ostroth refused to take this as a legitimate threat. In his point of view, depending on insignificant humans is a hateful and shameful act. But the God Tree was in this war to win it all. He's going to take the most reasonable edge he could get and run away with it. Just like now, with the help of the man-made weapon, he has been empowered to the point of being able to block a point-blank beam from a fourth-order transcendent powerhouse. He did not just block it, he freaking caught it with his strong hands. And as if he was playing baseball, he threw it right back to where it came from, the Destruction Beast's ugly bug face. Ostroth managed to dodge that one, but this is not looking good for the overpowered wingless moth. This beam, just like the ones that came before it, contained a powerful detonation that could raise a significant portion of the city. And the God Tree just used it as a power play, a bait to conceal his next move to come in and take a literal bite out of the enemy. This actual attack landed without any resistance. He caught the Destruction Beast off guard, and this bug would pay the price for inattentiveness. To combo from that vicious bite, God Tree decided to deal some critical damage up close and personal with willow leaf flying blades. His sharp wooden teeth were holding the enemy in place while the more destructive part of the attack was coming straight from his mouth. Getting hit in this distance would be catastrophic. Ostroth willed all of his muscles to move away from the attack, and he somewhat succeeded. He managed to break free from the sinking teeth, but still got grazed by the main strike. This willow leaf flying blades was on a whole other level. It damn near cut the entirety of Jiao City in half with its sharpness. The destruction beast survived the ordeal despite being caught in a trap. He's a little worse for wear, but he's still breathing. He was not only alive, but the overpowered bug was also supremely pissed off. He was supposed to be the stronger being here. That was Ostroth's next big mistake. He chose to yap angrily instead of focusing on the enemy's movements. God Tree was already coming in with a meteor punch from above. It seems like every single move that Yuziyu makes at this point would be enough to delete the remains of Jiao City little by little. Ostroth roared in pain and shame as he kept on getting outplayed every turn. He could not even retaliate even just a little. Not only that, the injuries from all the Gray's shots to the full-powered blows were catching up to his beaten body. From all the injury that God Tree was giving away for free, another surprise was revealed. He thought that this bug was done with transformations, but no, it was just wearing a mask. Hidden behind is an ugly mug only a mother could love. Seeing that he's already getting trash-talked, Ostroth decided to discard all the vestigial parts to reveal his true form. He still thinks that he'll come out on top after all is said and done. What was hidden inside that bug cosplay was a demonic being with an otherworldly aura. The apex predator, a monster of the shadows. This is the real destruction beast. God Tree's strongest foe is revealed the final card, going full power. But his spirit power is constantly decreasing. The energy from the spirit missile is not an organic energy obtained from a living body after all. This is a race against time. And if you know Yuziyu, you know that he'll try his hardest to make the most of this limited time frame. The destruction beast will not sit idly too. Both of their lives are on the line. Both of them will fight like it. With both of their full potential in effect, it has become an all-out brawl for two of the most powerful beings on the planet. Now that Ostroth has shed his bug skin, it opened up room for some new attacking tools like a claw. This claw was as fast as lightning and as sharp as it was fast. It tore through God Tree's thick and supposedly indestructible body. Of course, Yuzi would not lose most of his left side prowess without exchanging for a damage trade. He took out one of Ostroth's limbs as revenge. That was made possible by his 9 wood arboreal roots that altered his stems into a whole new different beast. With a new form comes new defensive skills for Ostroth. Now he has a magnetic shield that could repel powerful physical attacks. The destruction beast has also picked up a few tricks after consuming the Leviathan Monarch. He could command water to rage as a tsunami. God Tree has the picture-perfect counter for that though, the ability to freeze everything in sight. Ice Age. Suddenly, the heart of Jiao City has turned into a frozen tundra. It was like a gigantic ice sculpture of a world-ending calamity. Water did not work, so Ostroth immediately jumped to his next attacking option, using his grating voice for a sonic attack. This time, God Tree chose to bust out a defensive move of his own, activating crystallization to weather the storm of sound waves. It was just enough to stave off the more destructive property of the sonic attack. The surrounding buildings, the few that were left, were not safe from the collateral damage. Despite all the chaos, God Tree was not forgetting his mission to drive this destruction beast out of the city dead or alive. That was what Lil Panda wanted to do. This was the perfect moment for a surprise attack coming from below the ground with the use of Yuziyu's earth element manipulation. That one really hurts just based on Ostroth's growl. And now, God Tree has enough strength to coil his branches on literal buildings to use them as blunt weapons. It was like Yuziyu was beating up the beast with the ruins that Ostroth tore up in the first place. Little Panda watched it all too. In his cuddly little face, the usual cocky grin has been wiped out. It was replaced with a worry for his boss. That building attack has taken off the destruction beast's entire left arm. Ostroth thinks that what the God Tree has been doing and saying are ridiculous. Yuziyu was protecting humans when he only managed to grow to this stage through killing other creatures as well. When you look at it from the monster's perspective, God Tree doesn't have the qualifications to be posturing here. But he was misunderstanding one vital thing. Everything the God Tree has done up till now was never in service for humans. He was just doing this because this is what his comrade wants. He's taking action for the 9th brother of the family. And this is a revenge match for harming one of his people. The debt must be paid back in blood. For the destruction beast, words like comrade or family don't mean a thing. It's a stupid word. It's so ridiculous that he cannot hold his mocking laughter back at all. He thought that the God Tree's motivation and actions were simply arrogance. Coming all the way here for a death match was a big mistake. Ostroth wanted to make ZU regret everything in just one more attack. A spiritual energy bomb, just like the ones that came before it. This one was different. It was on a scale that has never been seen before. The energy ball looked like a burgeoning dark pearl in the middle of the cursed city. Ninetails saw this and immediately handed down the order for everyone to retreat to a safer distance. Shi Yaoqing was also near the battlefield, and the pressure from that incoming attack made her afraid for her master. Meanwhile, the Meta team wanted to fly a bit closer. They might just melt if they go in just an inch too close. The battle is reaching its final stage. How will the gears of fate turn? No one knows, but all eyes are on the historic battle of the world's most powerful beings. Every human tuning in, whether from a busy metropolitan area or in the countryside, only had one question in mind: will humanity survive? All their hopes were pinned on the God Tree, the beast that they used to call the Demon Tree. And that hope was getting smaller and smaller as Ostroth's attack grew bigger and bigger. The beast himself asserted that this would be the final attack of this battle. He wanted ZU to take his pitiful mindset and die. Using his remaining good arm, the destruction beast finally unleashed the unholy attack into the world for the God Tree to stop. ZU knew that no matter what, he must block this attack with everything that he's got. Both he and the enemy only had one good arm remaining, and God Tree would do his hardest to use his to stop this celestial-level attack. Just the sheer weight of the sinister bomb was enough to crush and disintegrate the physical materials near it. Ostroth poured his everything into this one last attack. He was banking on ending this tiresome ordeal once and for all. It's not looking good for our boy. His regeneration just could not keep up with the rate of constant destruction. It was burning his body badly. The media and the people did not expect this. God Tree was showing them what it really means to protect something by blocking an unblockable attack. The Federation and its leaders were betting on him to not lose this clash of wills, his carrying the spiritual power of humanity after all. They didn't know how it started, but everyone watching this scene could not help but cheer for the God Tree to beat the odds. Shi Yaoqing might be on the field, but she could not do anything. This level of battle is above her pay grade at the moment. Qinggong and Thorn could only look from the outskirts of the city where it would be relatively safe to observe. They all believe in their master with all their hearts. As for Ziv himself, he believed more than anyone does. This perseverance against the most powerful attack unleashed by the Beast of Destruction was not cutting it. Ostroth's unshakable confidence was starting to shake. The massive bomb made of pure spiritual power started getting heavier and gaining momentum, planting God Tree's feet deep in the broken pavements. Ostroth refused to give in after all that boasting from earlier. But the calm in God Tree's voice was unbending. He steeled himself to never lose and never die. He will come out on top, and he will continue living the good life. And after that, he will get everyone to leave this cursed place, for that is what the little panda wanted. Ostroth was tired of listening to the tireless insistence of selflessness. He wanted to prove that his ideology and the world he wanted to make are much more important. So important that you would gladly erase a massive piece of land in a brilliant display of destruction. After a moment of silence, it looked like the massive spiritual energy bomb has finally run out of steam. The destruction beast laughed like a lunatic, believing that he has finally destroyed the biggest pain in his neck. Just as Ostroth was about to drag ZU's mission and arrogance to the mud, a surprise visit from that familiar blue orb peered through the dust that has not even settled yet. The destruction beast's jaw fell in shock. This was impossible. That was his most powerful attack. All of that was running through his brain. But now that Ostroth has given his all and failed to kill, it's about time for God Tree's turn. He opened the killing blow by using the most overpowered ability he recently obtained from the Divine Flower, the Temporal Pause. The next thing you know, he was using 9-wood arboreal roots with his few remaining and serviceable limbs capable of attacking. Ostroth was stuck in time, and he had absolutely no answer for that kind of binding. He was like a sitting duck ready to get stabbed from multiple points. God Tree pushed forth with intensity. This is it. This is his chance to be the one to end the war. ZU is not the type to let this chance go. With all the strength that he has left, he was not taking any half measures. He beat, stabbed, slashed, and even slapped the overpowered bug up into the high heavens without mercy. Ostroth felt his body getting torn into shreds, being reduced to just a body, a head, and a couple of limbs. It looked painful. With the final strike of a golden and hardened root, everything is finally about to come into conclusion. It will be over. The mission that little Panda started will be up to the boss to end. God Tree has been caught up with the emotion and sensation of dealing the final blow, the killing. He ultimately squished that destruction beast down to the ground like the disgusting bug that he is. Yu only caught his breath when the system notified him that the target's vitals have stopped. The glorious monster that the whole world feared has been reduced into nothing but a lifeless head without a body. The remains of this incorporeal beast in his final form started dissipating into nothing. God Tree took one final look at the mess that he made, the glorious conclusion of it all. Then his voice echoed throughout the entire city addressing Old Nine, the little panda. He wanted to be the one to break the news to his comrade that the battle is over, and they have won. They can finally go home now. The little bag knows it. Shi Yaoqing knows it. God Tree made the impossible happen. Above the decimated land of the cursed Ji City, the sun has begun to rise.